I'm going to start by telling you what we're here for. What we're trying to do is to uh, facilitate and encourage Hilton Head Island to be, or better be, a beloved community. That's our goal. And the goal is that if we know each other from various racial or ethnic backgrounds, if we know each other, we can appreciate each other. And if we appreciate each other, we can love each other and we can be a better community. And we're an odd place, if you hadn't noticed. And one of the things that makes us different is we have a Gullah culture, and it's very different for us. And a lot of us have misconceptions or not enough knowledge about it. And that's what we want to do here. That's what the Ascended book is all about. It's a man whose family was rooted on Hilton Head Island. He was reared in New York City. He wanted to find out about his culture, and he ended up on Hilton Head Island. This is where his folks were. If you want another thing that to bear in mind before we get going is the 30th annual Hilton Head Island Gullah celebration will take place next month, February, with events throughout February. And I would encourage you to get involved. One of them involves our special guest today. Louise will be speaking in the afternoon right before Keith speaks here. So GullahHeritage.com is a good place to do that. The format today is that I'm going to try to be a host just in the background. And we wanted somebody with great expertise to tell us her side of the story, or to tell us newcomers, relative newcomers, about the Gullah people. Today's focus is the Gullah people. It's something that Keith spends a lot of time and a lot of pages dissecting for us in his book. And format will be us having a conversation, but we want you to ask your questions throughout. And we have Vanna. Vanna is here to come and bring you a microphone. If you have a question, please interrupt us, ask us throughout, and then we'll stop early so you can ask questions at the end as well. And I'd appreciate it if there are questions and not commentary. Just ask a question while we have an expert here. So we're honored, we're lucky, and we're privileged to have a special guest today who is a native of Hilton Head Island, reared on Hilton Head Island, and is now widely appreciated for her being a champion of that topic, a champion of who the Gullah folk are. Louise Miller Cohen is her name. Just a tiny bit about Louise. She's founder, you might know her best as founder of the Gullah Museum of Hilton Head Island in 2003. She is that preserves the culture, tries to teach the culture, and it's written on her website, Stories in Art and Customs and History for Visitors and the Descendants Seeking Connection to Their Heritage. And so are we seeking connections. That's the crux of our book, and it is Louise's his entire life. She's a storyteller of great renown. She's been recognized with the Jean Laney Harris Folk Advocacy Award from the South Carolina General Assembly. It's quite a distinguished award. Several of our Gullah friends have won it, and Louise was in on that for her storytelling. She's won the Governor's Award from the South Carolina Palmetto Trust for this. She's served on the Gullah Geechee Culture Heritage Corridor Commission, if you will, and she's narrated a film, and I think her museum had a lot to do with the documentaries, Remnants of Mitchellville. She co-wrote a play, Seeking a Spiritual Journey. She was featured in the award-winning documentary Hilton Head Island back in the day, from the era between the Civil War and the bridge. And in 2016, she received an honorary degree from the University of South Carolina for preserving the Gullah culture, her commitment to its citizens of the Low Country, and dedication to the restoration of her little house. So, welcome. Who are the Gullah?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. David said a lot of what he said. I don't really need to say a lot. But first, I want to just give all honor and praises to God for allowing me to be here. I thank Him for this great assignment that He gave me, and I constantly ask Him to forgive me for those years when I ran from it because I did not want to do it. So when I read and hear the story of Jonah, how he ran from God, I can say Jonah wasn't alone because I ran for 3 years from this assignment that God gave me. But I thank God for His patience, His mercy, and His love uh, for me. And all those years when I was running, trying to get away from Him, did not understand it because nobody never explained that. Nobody didn't ever say, well, let me tell you what I went through, how I felt when I was running for God. I did not know anything about it. I was just running and trying to make myself happy. But in the meantime, I didn't because every day He was tapping me on my shoulder and He was saying the same thing that He said yesterday. He was just telling me what He wanted me to do. And He really helped me to understand um, who God really is and who He really was in my life and why I had to go through some of the things that I went through. So the first thing I want to tell you is that I am a native of Hilton Head. I'm a member of the fifth generation of my family. And my mom and dad are both Native Islanders. When I was born, they left Hilton Head Island to go live in Savannah, Georgia for a better life. Well, of course, they took their baby with them. But I don't know what happened. At 9 months old, my dad brought me back to Hilton Head Island, gave me to his older sister, Georgiana, that she would raise me. And that's what happened. So sometimes there's a sacrifice. So I can tell you, with this job that I have, there was a sacrifice, you know. So the sacrifice I made, I could not even be raised by my mom and dad, by my biological parents, because of this job that God had for me. So Savannah, I guess, didn't want me. So Savannah probably said, "Oh, get her out of here." so, so anyway, my dad brought me back to Hilton Head at 9 months old. And I laugh about this all the time. I ask people if they remember the first time they went to church. And a lot of times people said, no, I don't remember. And then when they said, well, Louise, you remember? I said, yeah, I remember the first time I went to church. I said, how old was you? I said, 10 months old. And but that was a joke. That's a part of storytelling, right? But yeah. So, but really, I was 10 months old the first time Mama took me to church. First African Baptist Church here on Hilton Head Island. That's where I grew up in that church. I grew up with these songs that I have hidden in my heart for years and years and years. I grew up hearing those songs. I grew up hearing that Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. I grew up hearing that. And many, 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 many other songs. Okay, so but anyway, grew up here on the island, and of course, went to school, and I remember probably when I was about 13 years old, I remember my step grandmother. Um, It was no telephone back then. So she probably talked to her at church or something. But anyway, she told her that one of my aunts that lived in New York wanted me to come to New York to babysit for her that summer. And her promise was that she would buy all my school clothes for that next school session. So, um, and I was excited. Yes, I was because I grew up alone. I was like an only child. So I didn't have anybody to talk to except Louise. So Louise really my best friend. Yeah, we talk every day. So I used to tell Louise, where I want to go when I grow up, I want to go to New York City. That's where I want to go. Nobody else didn't ever ask me that. Okay, that's where I want to go. So when Julia told Mama about her daughter's request for me to come, I'm saying, "Whoa, this is it." But Mama told me, she said, "But you can't go." And I said, "Why?" She says, speaking Gullah now, because the bugler gonna kill up you and then children. Okay. So, and I heard that, but I don't want to go to New York and get killed, by the burglars. So that passed. And I really never really thought about that opportunity. It just went by well. But anyway, I often think about that and I think about what would have happened had I gone to New York, you know, for that summer. Well, I probably would have loved New York and I probably would have loved to go back. You know what I'm saying? And but anyway, I didn't. I didn't go to New York. In fact, there were so many opportunities that I had to go to New York. I had families that lived there and they were retiring and they had retirement parties and they would always call me and invite me, and there would always be a ride going. Then when I checked my notebook, because I was into a lot of stuff. I used to be a home interior rep, and there's a show on my calendar. I couldn't go. So anyway, I got to go to New York City. Must have been somewhere around 2012. And I'll never forget. There was we used to take this vacation every summer, and they call it the cross country vacation. I remember getting to New York and I saw some clothes hanging. And I'm saying, "What? This is New York? Oh my God!" But anyway, I laugh about that all the time, and I wonder what would have happened to me had I, went to New York that first time. I don't know, but I guess that wasn't for me because that didn't happen. But anyway, I had to be here. So being here on Hilton Head Island was a journey I'll never forget because when I think about my life and I think about what God said about us, He know the plan that He have for us, you know. So that my plan was to be here, but as I went through years and years, I guess gathering this Gullah experience, not knowing that I had to do something with it. So I'm going to fast forward to 1996 when the Gullah celebration got started here on Hilton Head Island. Probably back up a little bit to 1992. 1992 was when NIPCA was formed here on Hilton Head Island. That was the same year I lost my husband. Okay. I lost him. He was 49 years old, didn't even see 50. Okay. He was buried on his 50th birthday. Um, but anyway, I remember going to a meeting. Back then, we had Abe's um, Driftwood Motel and all that. Yeah, Shrimp House. Yeah, back there, right here in Chaplin. I remember going to that meeting that morning, and I overheard somebody talking about me. Sometimes you got to be careful how you talk about people. I overheard that conversation, and so anyway, in the conversation, the lady was saying, "Well, she looked around and saw me. She said, "Ooh, Tom Bonner know how to get them out of here." So I'm saying, "Well, Tom didn't invite me this time." Um, but anyway, when I went there and I sat and listened, it seemed like there was work here on Hilton Head to be done, and it seemed like I had to roll up my sleeves and be a part of it. So I did. Okay. And with this Gullah celebration, and David talked about celebrating the 30th year, I can tell you that I was the program coordinator and a lot of other things, and I worked diligently for 20 years. Never missed a year. Okay. But God is just so great, y'all. Until when things are happening, you don't know why it's happening. But if you stick around, you will find out. Okay. I did not know that the gala celebration, that out of it would come my great assignment here on Hilton Head Island, that I would find out why I had to be here. I cannot tell you why God chose me because I don't know why. But I can tell you that's back in 2002 was when I really felt the calling on my life. And the storytelling thing, this is part of the assignment. I remember I used to be a home interior rep. And one of the things that they would tell us about some of the frame art that we were showing to our customers, they would always say, please tell a story. And I would look at the piece of art and a story would just form, you know. And I remember leaving Hilton Head, going to have a meeting in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And on my way there, I said, oh my God, I didn't think about a story to tell about this picture that I was showing. It was a picture of two deers, okay? And of course, you had the buck. His head was up and alert. And then you had the doe. She was like, her head was on the ground. She was eating grass. So I look at it and our story just formed. And it was like God was telling me what to say. Oh, to say that the doe, and he said, give it a name. I said, Dora. She was eating grass. And then the buck, the male, he was, and say, he is watching out for her and tell those other guys not to come near her. And I mean, so just like the Spirit was telling me, it was what I said. And the people were just laughing. And so then my manager says, Louise, what did you say? She came from the bathroom and people were just laughing. What did you say? I said, I don't know what I said. I said, I'm just talking about the picture. But anyway, but God was pointing some things out to me. And at my shows, I would tell stories. And I never forget this particular night on my way home that the enemy spoke. He says, you know what? You say you're a Christian, but you're a good liar. You hear how those people laugh when you were telling the stories? And you are lying. I'm saying, what? So I felt so convicted. I stopped telling stories for a while. And God said, no, you got to go back and telling stories because you are telling stories. So then when I realized, must be a storyteller. So then when I got my first computer, I asked God, so God, what should my email address be? He says, HHI Storyteller. And as of today, that's what it is, you know? So God has been speaking to me. And I've been listening, you know, and I've been running too, to the point where I could no longer run. So he got on me so much about what I had to do until I had to pay attention to that voice that was speaking to me. So now here is coming the Color Museum. Okay. So you talking about a little house that's going to be 96 years old this year. Okay. Well, I had a tenant at one time who offered to tear that little house down because that's what we were doing here on Hilton Head Island. We was getting rid of those old houses because somehow it seemed like we were trying to erase the memory of how we lived at one time because we had to live in those houses. We're trying to erase that. So I remember the guy volunteered. He said, Miss Louise, he was a Jamaican guy. He said, Miss Louise, I tear it down for you. I says, okay. And God said, mm-mm. So I couldn't touch it. And as we move along, past 2002, the next thing I know, God was telling me that that house had to be saved. And then he sent some people, some guys with the Home Builders Association. Those guys volunteered to restore that house. They work on it every Saturday for a year. And they restored that house in 2010. 2011, we opened the door. So not only did that little house have to be saved, and you see, God had a plan for me that I did not know he had. So Mama, who is my aunt that raised me from 9 months old, before she died, Mama had a will made out. And the will stated, when I die, Louise is to pay off any debt I might have. And after that, everything I own belonged to her. So I inherited all Mama land. I inherited all those structures, all the artifacts, all that she poured into me when I was a child, because she raised me from 9 months old. She taught me how to cook and how to make the colored dishes, the cuisines, how to make quilts, all that. And she had actually put her possession in my hand. I did not know that the house was hiding some very important stuff, okay? When those guys restored the house and they went up in the attic, when I tell people the attic, well, what attic? The house was so small, right? But when those guys went up in the ceiling, then I say, they found my great grandfather, Will Simmons. He had purchased a sword. Back then, those soldiers used to do parades here right on Hilton Head. Okay. He had purchased the Grand Army of Republic sword, was hidden out there. Okay. That was my first time even knowing that it was there. So the house was hiding something very, very precious, something that we can actually handle today. So let me tell you a little bit about Will Simmons. I grew up hearing his name and mom and them call him Papa. Okay, never even seen a picture of him. But I got so interested in him, his name, because the property, this is Papa bought this land. Then I start digging, wow, let me start researching. That's what it is, research and it's work. It's you have, but when you want to find out more, you better get yourself ready because it is work. And it might be that you might be the only person doing the work. Who knows? But anyway, start researching. And it was some kind of meeting that I attend, but they mentioned that we had the Heritage Library here on Hilton Head. If you want to know more about your ancestors, you can go there and find out. So I definitely want to know more about Papa. Never seen a picture of him. I just heard his name. Went there, and sure enough, Papa deposition was there. And and I remember reading that, and I remember him saying that he purchased no, he started talking about his childhood and how he was raised up on Ladies Island. And Ladies Island is right next to St. Helena Island. You leave one and cross the other without even knowing it. But yeah, and Papa told that his mom and dad was both enslaved here, and his dad, um, he told the name of his dad and mom. So I know their name because of that deposition that I read. That was in there. That's an important piece of information. And then he told about his childhood, and he said that well, of course, back then, our people wasn't allowed to go to school. So he said his job as a child was to herd the cows and the hogs. And he didn't tell how he got to Hilton Head. He said, when I got to Hilton Head, I met a man, and he had a pass to sell oysters and berries to the soldiers. He said, I borrowed that man's pass. That man's name was Ira Sherman. So when he went to enlist, he presented that pass to the officers, and they called him Ira Sherman. Not William Simmons now, Ira Sherman. So when I went to Washington to look for his name, I knew not to look for William Simmons because it wasn't there. Ira Sherman was there. And so today, as people look for their families, sometimes people come to the McCullough Museum with tears in their eyes that they're trying to find their people. And I'm saying, well, this story might have been just like my great grandfather. He used somebody else's past, and that's how he enlists. But anyway, so he talked about himself in there, and he told how he purchased after the Civil War. He talked about how he enlisted, and he was right there in Mitchellville now. He was actually a cook, you know, and then he was assigned to go to Morris Island. He talked about how cold it used to be back then and how he actually got rheumatism from his neck down. He told all that. He told how tall he was, 5'5". So he was a short man. Okay. So where did this height come from with me? It come from the other side. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, then he talked about how he contact smallpox when he was on a furlough here on the island. And when he went back, he could be a nurse, a smallpox nurse in the hospital in Charleston, South Carolina. Honorably discharged in 1866. Then he talked about the opportunity he was given to purchase land. This is when they left Mitchellville. You see, because then when that was an experiment, when that was over, the people then had to defend for themselves. So I wondered, well, if they were given, like I heard, land in Mitchellville, why did they have to leave? Okay, good question. Why did they have to leave? But they had to leave. And then they had to look out for themselves. Okay. So people say, well, where did they get the money to buy land? Well, of course, I said, you must be think the people wasn't human. They were human. They know what to do. Those people work. While when they was in Mitchellville, the plot of land that they were given there to build houses, they part their little garden, little produces and stuff, they sell it. You know, when they had jobs, they got a little money. They know what they had to do. We're going to buy some land, you know? So when they had to leave and disperse themselves in the communities here on Hilton Head, my great grandfather, William Simmons, said he purchased 15 acres of land on Gumtree Road at $1 per acre. And I can tell you where the Gullah Museum is a portion of that land that was purchased. Okay? So that land is near and dear to me because it was purchased by my great grandfather after the Civil War.
I want to just say one thing about the depositions. That's because he was in the service, correct? And that's where a lot of the records come for the Gullah people to know and trace your folks. And the deposition would have been later when they were going to get pensions.
Well, it helped. I know that helped with the pension.
Help with the
Yeah,
pension. They would have
helped
to
with the
give
pension.
testimony that they served and what they did. And in those testimonies, they filled in blanks for you.
And their signature, because they couldn't write their names, was an X. Yeah.
But when you were growing up, you didn't know Gullah was all that different, or did you? And that you use one phrase, and some of the things I've seen you. So you talked about coming at some point, coming out of a shell of shame.
Yes.
What is that?
The shell of shame was, well, you had people that left, the island. A lot of people left. You hear about the Great Migration. A lot of people left and went elsewhere, New York, up north, wherever other family was for a better life, people want better jobs. They want to be able to go to school for a better life. And then everybody couldn't leave. Everybody could not leave. Some of us had to stay here. Okay? Yeah. Some of us had to stay here. Yeah. And I said, God used some of us who had to stay here to keep it together. Somebody have to keep the home fire burning. And that's how I see us. So because we didn't leave the island, a lot of us were still speaking our language, the Sculla Geechee language, this English-based Creole language, where you drop certain letters from a word. And when you do that, it's powerful. It changed the sound of the word. Okay? I'm going to just give you a couple of words. One in particular. You know how we play in the yard? Okay? So yard is spelled Y-A-R-D. Okay? Speaking our language, we would drop the R. So I don't know why, but we would drop R's, we drop H's, and whatever letter in that word is dropped, you're going to hear when we pronounce the word. So talking about yard, we don't say yard, we say yad. And just when we say that, then people look at you. You know what I'm saying? So for a long time, especially when the bridge came to Hilton Head Island, we had people then coming to Hilton Head Island that haven't heard anything about Gullah, okay? And we were accused of speaking broken English. Our poor children who had to go to school to be taught by people who didn't look like them. Oh my God. It was hard for them, okay? Because, and for some reason, Gullah Geechee people, we just talk fast, you know? So when you say, well, who is that? We don't take the time to say all that. Who is that? You say, who that? We're done with that. You didn't ask that question. Who that? I mean, who are you? Or am I asking somebody when they say, who that? Am I asking you? Or who is that? So when I see the shell of shame, because when people say, oh, they speak in broken English. The other thing that used to get me is that people will laugh when we talk. Well, then that makes us don't want to talk in front of people. because they want to laugh. I did not know. I said, are they really laughing at me? Are they really laughing at me? And I tell you what, when I got out of that closet, I slammed the door and I said, I will no longer be ashamed. Then I start standing up to preserve the Gullah Geechee language that we speak because it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So yeah, that's what I mean to shell of shame, because we was ashamed
So
to talk to people.
even with folks in the African American community that lived in Beaufort, or people who lived on the mainland, looked down on the islanders.
Yeah, I don't know why.
They were country.
It's like we just keeping it alive. That's all, you know. So anyway, I'm glad now that God assigned me to do what needed to be done. And I just want to back up and say something, because this time is just moving swiftly. It seemed like our people purchasing land. I want to quickly tell you a little bit about Jonesville community right here on Hilton Head Island. I just want you to know my great grandfather, Caesar Jones, that community, Jonesville, is named after him. He purchased over 125 acres of land here on this island. And of course, Edisto Island is where a lot of our people were sold to. From that auction block in Charleston, South Carolina, they were sold to Edisto Island. Okay? Then at Edisto Island, a lot of them were sold from Edisto Island to someplace else. So Caesar Jones was sold from Edisto Island to Rose Hill Plantation. And of course, he was a driver on that plantation, and Lord knows what else he had to do. But we find out that he was a driver on that plantation because he told his story. So, and of course, when the Civil War came about, him and his wife decided then, and the Union Army was right there in Mitchellville. So that's when our people started escaping from various islands. They wanted to get to Hilton Head so they could be free. But a lot of our people was among them. Statistics say it was 1500s. I don't know. I didn't hear about anybody losing their life, but I heard a little bit about Port Royal Sound. and what I was told at Port Royal Sound, that two tides ran together, and it was so difficult for a man to row a boat. They used to say bucking the tide, but rowing against the tide, two tides. But our people did it. So if 1,500 people escaped and made it to Mitchellville so they could be free, I greatly applaud them for the strength, the determination that they had to be free. And so getting back to Caesar Jones right quick, Caesar Jones said, yeah, he purchased over 125 acres of land. So Jonesville is named after him. But not only did he purchase land in Jonesville, but as you drive down Gumtree Road, you're going to see Katie Miller Drive. That's a part of land that he purchased. Okay. So then when you get down there on Squire Pope Road and you look at the Tabby, you're talking about land that was purchased. Okay. And then on Wild Horse Road, Coulter's Drive. Yeah, he purchased that too. So I thank God for our people going through what they had to go through, what they was assigned to go through. I thank God for them, for their strength. And when I look at Proverbs 13 and 22, that scripture said, a good man, a good man, leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. So I can tell you, where a lot of us are living here today, our ancestors knew that we were coming They knew that we would need somewhere to live. So they answered the call, purchased land, made provision for us. And we are here on Hilton Head Island today from A to Z. Our names in about 14 different communities. We're here. The Gullah Museum is here for a reason. And it wasn't something that Louise did. God did it through me. God did. Okay? Because those houses need to be preserved. We need to know where we come from. And you know what I did? I've said in my mind, I says, boy, it would be nice if we had outhouse. This to show what this for the young ones, the ones who are coming behind us, to see what life was like for us on Hilton Head Island before the bridge. They need to know. It's like this is how you teach the story. Okay, so I would say that in my mind, just me and God. I said, well, Lord, it would be nice if we had outhouses here. And I said, I know it's not going to be functional. I know it's not going to be functional. No, it's not going to be functional, but it would be nice. One day God spoke back. He said, why can't it be functional? Why can't? Yeah. He said, why can't you have the outhouse look, but on the inside, you have modern, the modern slave. Why can't it? I said, ooh, God, you so smart. You're so smart. You're so smart. So I never forget, back in 2023, David Ames asked Emory Campbell and I to come to, I think he was his classmate 50th anniversary or something, but he was doing something at the end down there and asked Emory Campbell and I to just come and talk about it. So I was there telling my story just like it is now and talking about, coming up, what we had. And I think I mentioned something about outhouse, and that's what I would like to see. And to my surprise, a lady came to me after the presentation and she said, Louise, how much will it cost to get that outhouse at the Gullah Museum? I told her, and they made it happen. And before I close this session, I would like to recognize somebody sitting way back there. Her name is Linda. Linda, can you stand?
Linda Ellis.
Linda, I was at some function, and Linda told me that she was the first person to donate to the Gullah Museum when we was asking. So I want to recognize her because I want to always remember her, So I want to publicly tell you thank you so very much for what you did.
Do y'all have a question? Does anybody have a question for her?
Well, we're all familiar with the Gullahs, but what is Gullah Geechee?
Thank you for asking. Because it depends on the tribe. Okay, so but coming up, we didn't know this because at one time I never heard the word Gullah until I started with the Gullah celebration. That's when I heard Gullah for the first time. Okay. I heard Geechee all of my life. All of my life. And that's where people would laugh at us. What we say, they would repeat when we say it because we said it a little bit different and they would laugh. But I heard Geechee all of my life. And it was always something negative, But yeah, so I don't have time to fuss with people. But I know that people trying to make a little separation there between Geechees and Gullah. And sometimes I don't want to burst no bubbles either. So I just let people have it the way they want to have it. But I know I was asked to do a presentation one time in on St. Simon Island, and I remember the lady said, "We are saltwater geeches over here," and I, I didn't follow her up because I said, "Ain't nowhere in the world." And I'm sorry, it was Sapelo Island. Sapelo Island. You can only get there by boat. I said, "Well, I'm not going to say anything to that because I can't swim from Sapelo Island back to Meridian, Georgia. But you talking about saltwater Geechee, and then I'm supposed to be gulling up. And she's standing up for Geechee. She's saltwater Geechee. So I said, "Lady, so you're talking to a saltwater Geechee too." But it's like I said, I didn't have time for all that. No, but yeah. So Gullah Geechee, that's who we are. Gullah Geechee, because I know Geechee before I even heard the word Gullah. That answer your question? All right.
Anything?
You're welcome.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
You did. What did he say?
Great. Thank you. Wonderful to hear your stories and to hear the efforts you've made to preserve this land. Has there been continuous pressure to sell these lands to developers, and how, has much of that happened?
Yes, and let me tell you something. And it's happening today. It's happening where the Gullah Museum is. I just got a letter from somebody, and they have exactly how much land I have on that spot. So they are researching us, and I told my kids about it. I said, I have a cousin, and excuse what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna just say what she used to say. But she she used to say, "Leave me the hell alone." So I want to tell him, leave me alone. You don't see a for sale sign on my land, so leave me alone. Let me enjoy what God put in my hand. Please leave me alone. But yes, there are people who are trying to pressure some of our people.
So I would say that the land is a big part of the book, and the land is a big part of current issues, like Louise says. And so that's going to be our focus next week, specifically on the land. It's a tough issue. It's a hard one. Let me ask you one thing before we can go. Is that what could we do? What could we do that would honor your culture or um, make life better for the Gullah community on Hilton Head Island?
I think one thing that we can do is just do what we're doing right now, coming together. Because let me just say this: we have no control over the skin that God put us in, this body. If God said He knew us before He formed us in our mother's womb, He did. It was really up to Him to put you in whatever body He wanted to put you in. If He wanted all of us to be of the same race, nationality, or whatever, He would have done that. But He didn't. He had this great big garden of beautiful flowers. You know what I'm saying? Because He is our maker and creator. So it's up to God. I mean, who we are. Now that we are here in this world that He created, we are here together. It's up to us how we going to treat each other. And I tell people this all the time. And if we think that we're going to just treat each other all kind of way and act all kind of way, and then we're going to go to heaven. Well, you might meet some of the same folks there too. You know what I'm saying? What you gonna do? So I think we need to. This should be a rehearsal here. How we gonna treat each other? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And if I'm my brother's keeper, we are. And I just thank God for the heart that He have given us, some people who will listen to God, because sometimes God can speak and we can be disobedient too. You know what I'm saying? He can tell you to give you some, not that much, God. Mm-mm. You know what I'm saying? But I think if we would just get together and just talk, and I think if you in our conversation, if you feel like you can help me in any way, or I can help you, then why not? Why don't we just do that? And I think that's a great start for us to let's there was somebody had a record one time, but let's straighten it out or
Yeah.
something. They say, how you expect me to understand if you only tell me what's on your mind or something like that. But I think coming together and talking, I'm so grateful to see that we are now fellowshipping together. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got the white church over there and the black one over here and all that. We are coming together. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I just ask that we keep on doing it, and I know if we ask the Lord, Lord, what do you have me to do? He will guide us in the right direction because He's a holy God. Holy God. You know what I'm saying? And if we are His children and we tell God, Lord, I want to be just like you. Now, be careful now because the test probably is coming. The test probably is coming. But let's do that. Let's straighten it out and let's get together and let's do better toward each other.
Well, that's a great way to finish, and I really appreciate your time, Louise. I know it's Louise's time is very valuable, and she's sought after a lot. And it was just a real personal thank you for being here today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Come back next week.
Just an announcement, Adam, in my life. Yeah. Hey, hey. We ready? Yeah, we just want to let you know that this session was recorded, and we hope we have your email. If you want, we'll try to get the word out of what the file name is, and if you hear of others who want to listen to what was said today, you can share that file. So we just wanted to let you know. Okay, thank you. And I think that the ending that Louise put to this session was a prayer that they all get together, and to that prayer, all God's children will say, "Amen." Mhm. Okay. Okay. So, oh, thank you. Thanks for